Very good morning. Uh, Today the topic was supposed to be anxiety disorders, but we'll be talking today about obsessive compulsive disorder, which was initially till ICD-10, which was considered to be a part of anxiety disorders. But now obsessive compulsive and related disorders have been separated into a section under the name of obsessive compulsive and related disorders. Okay, so it's characterized by continuous inner sense of imperfection connected to the perception that actions or intentions have been incompletely achieved. So obsessive compulsive disorder, yeah, there are movies that have depicted recent OCD, which is Mahanabhavu. Most of you would have watched that movie. So it's almost a case of obsessive compulsive disorder. So it affects around 1 to 2% of the populations, which is characterized by obsessions and compulsions. Obsession is an unwanted thought or image or an impulse which intrudes into the consciousness repeatedly. This is repetitive thoughts, images, or impulses that intrude into the consciousness and finally they result in stress and anxiety. And the motor counterpart of obsession is a compulsion, which is a behavior or act that is carried out to reduce the anxiety. Because obsession, so for example, someone gets an obsession of uh, contamination, right? That some certain part of the house or certain object is not clean enough. So what they do is they'll get that anxiety, uh, that thought that repeats itself repetitively, so that results in anxiety. So what do they do to reduce that anxiety? They act on it, that they'll start cleaning it repeatedly. So they clean it once, so again they'll have a thought, okay, probably it has not been cleaned completely, so they'll clean it again, they'll clean it again and clean it again. So compulsion is a method to reduce the anxiety which is caused by an obsession. So it has a prevalence of 2.5%, and prevalence is similar for men and women. Onset of obsessive compulsive disorder is typical during adolescence or early adulthood. And yeah, males have an earlier onset than females. And obsessive compulsive disorder is a chronic, it has a chronic course. The importance is that usually it affects usually people seen in 10th standard to degree first year or second year, around 15 to 20, 25, 20, 22 years. So depending upon the type of obsession, they'll cause a lot of anxiety, and they'll be students will be skipping classes. They won't go out. They'll be restraining themselves. They'll be so anxious because of lots of phenomenology going in and around them. So which results again in poor academic performance. Okay. So, because the earlier it starts, the grave is the prognosis. Because anything which starts in early adolescence, usually those are, because personality completely forms at an age of 18 years. Anything which has its onset before 18 years, that certain amount of that pathology will be formed as a part of personality. So, in those situations, the prognosis is very poor. And someone who has an obsessive compulsive personality and who has an OCD will have a very poor prognosis. So, what are the clinical features? And OCD, yeah, it's a 4-mark question in one of the previous question papers. So, obsessions are intrusive, they're distressing thoughts, or they might be mental images, they will be repetitive over and over. So they are ego dystonic. Delusions are ego syntonic. So these obsessions are experienced as unpleasant. Okay, so most common obsessions are obsessions of dirt and contamination. That certain surfaces are not clear or their hands have not been washed properly. And pathological doubt. Doubt is whether they don't know whether they have locked the house or not, so they'll go back and check it again and again. Or maybe they have a doubt whether they have switched off the gas stove, or have they locked their bike or cycle, something like that. So the need for symmetry. And so if you see patients with obsessive compulsive disorder, initial stages they'll be so very well organized and everything will be arranged as such. Everything will have a place, everything is arranged so neatly and symmetrically. Okay, then hoarding obsession. So they'll not discard anything. But this hoarding thing has now been shifted to another category. Then obsessions of sexual content. So once they see, or even if they not see the photos of idols, they'll have or blasphemous or religious. Obsessions of religious content of sexual content. So they'll be having images of gods having sex, or they'll have images of nude gods and goddesses, which is again so distressing to the patient. Or they may have obsessions of aggressive content where they'll have repetitive thoughts of they harming others or others harming them, and superstitious fears also. Then they have compulsions. See, compulsions are motor counterpart of an obsession. The repetitive behaviors or mental acts. That so you have two types of compulsions. There are mental compulsions and these are compulsive behaviors. Okay, so one compulsive behavior is hand washing. So if there is an obsession of dirt and contaminations, they'll have an anxiety, and to reduce that anxiety, the corresponding compulsion is cleaning and washing. And so someone has an need obsession of symmetry, so he'll be arranging until things are right. So he'll arrange it. Okay, he'll not, he'll not get contented that everything is perfect. Again, he'll have a doubt whether things are not appropriate. So he'll be arranging things until on and on and on and on. Then someone has a pathological doubt, so whether they have switched off the gas stove or not. So the corresponding compulsion is checking. So they'll go back, check, they'll go back, check, they'll go back, check. And then so hoarding, this has been removed, I'm sorry. So, and mental rituals. Okay, they'll have an for example, someone has an obsession of an aggressive content. So you have an image of he doing harming others, or he involving in sexual aggression towards others. And so what he does is he'll do mental rituals. For example, so if I count so and so God's name for so and so times, this will not happen. Or someone will have an obsession that his father or his mother who went out, he might meet with an accident, or he might not come back safe. So he'll start doing prayers, or he'll go to a temple and he'll have the rotations we do in a temple. He'll say, okay, I'll do this many number of rotations around your idol, so please save my father. So these are mental rituals. So most common obsessions are obsession of contamination. So the most common compulsion is repetitive hand wash and pathological doubt. So it's most common is checking. And the other multiple obsessions. So one patient may have one obsession or multiple obsessions, and around 60% will have multiple obsessions. And most common, as I said, most common compulsion is checking and washing and cleaning. And multiple compulsion will be around 50%. See, obsessions, you have an obsession, there's anxiety, compulsion. So because of that compulsion, the anxiety comes down. So again, because to get the relief of anxiety, patient does the compulsion. And then finally, again, they'll have an obsession. So this repeats on and on and on. So to diagnose the case of obsessive compulsive disorder, the person should have at some point of the time obsessions or compulsions which are excessive or unreasonable, and these must be severe enough to be time consuming, and they should cause distress or significantly interfere with individuals' normal routine, occupational or social functioning. So again, coming to etiology. So you have biological, psychological and social etiology. So in biology, you have neurochemistry, in which serotonin is a neurotransmitter which is implicated in obsessive compulsive disorder. Low levels of serotonin have been seen. And coming to brain imaging, there has been reduced volumes of caudate nucleus and increased volumes of thalamus in patients with obsessive compulsive disorder. And PET PET studies reveal increased glucose metabolism in orbitofrontal cortex and caudate nuclei. This is how an PET scan looks like. See, this is if there is increased glucose intake or glucose metabolism, it is depicted as shades of red and orange. If you see in obsessive compulsive disorder, there is increased glucose metabolism in orbitofrontal cortex. This is a normal patient or a normal control. And psychological theories. So obsessions are neutral stimuli which are paired with an anxiety provoking event. So something would have happened in his early life or maybe some or the other point of time wherein a neutral stimulus has been paired with an anxiety provoking event. And compulsions are reinforced because they reduce anxiety. Psychoanalytic theory states that there has been a regression from Oedipal stage to an anal stage as a defense against aggressive impulses. And see, PANDA is a pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcus. So, post-streptococcal, glomerulonephritis as one of the later on side effect of streptococcal infection, and rheumatic fever as a complication for streptococcal infection, and mitral valve involvement in later age. In addition to that, there are pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infection. We call them as PANDAS. And most common presentation is with obsessive compulsive disorder in post-streptococcal infected patients. And so again, as I said, for diagnosis, you have ICD criteria and DSM-5 criteria. But for research purposes and to actually, when there is insurance coverage, you have to show improvement. So for that, you need a rating scale. And Yale Brown Obsessive Compulsive Symptom Checklist or YBOX is the rating scale which is used for obsessive compulsive disorder. Because obsessive compulsive disorder, you have lots of anxiety, there are lots of obsessions, there are lots of compulsions. So you need to differentiate them from other conditions. So anxiety, the patient initially says, I have anxiety, but later on, after a detailed interview, these obsessions, they come out. Especially people are very scared to talk about these sexual obsessions and blasphemous obsessions that they get. Okay, you have body dysmorphic disorder and specific or social phobias. You have all the other list of things you need to consider while diagnosing a case of obsessive compulsive disorder. Especially important is delusional disorder. See, someone who has a delusion of contamination, he also will feel that his hands are contaminated, and so he will be also washing his hands repetitively. Someone who has an obsession of contamination will also wash his hands repetitively. But the difference between these two things is someone with an OCD will have an anxiety component and he will wash his hands to reduce the anxiety. But someone who has a delusion disorder, he believes that his hands are contaminated. So if you believe it, so you will do it without any anxiety. But someone with an OCD, he'll have a doubt. Okay, it is not yet clear. They are not yet clean enough. Okay, they clean enough? No, they are not clean enough. So okay, I'll wash my hands again. In that, there is a bit of anxiety, but with delusional disorder, there is no anxiety associated. And in children, OCD is associated with learning disorders and disruptive behavioral disorders. And in adults, OCD can also lead to major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety and other disorders. Now, coming to a brief note on treatment. Treatment, again, you have pharmacological therapy, non-pharmacological therapy. In non-pharmacological therapy, you have list of cognitive behavioral therapy and others. In addition to that, there is psychosurgery and deep brain stimulation, which are used for management of obsessive compulsive disorder. So pharmacotherapy, the first line is again SSRI. So because serotonin hypothesis of OCD, there is less levels of serotonin. So to increase the levels of serotonin in the brain, you use an SSRIs. So first line, which was fluoxamine, which was the first line of drug which was used previously, but now we use fluoxetine. Fluoxamine is not used because of its enzyme interact. It interacts with the it interacts with other drugs which are metabolized by cytochrome P450 group of enzymes. So because it's an enzyme inhibitor, it will cause toxicity. Because it's an enzyme, it alters the levels of many other drugs. So fluoxamine is used with caution, but that can be used in as a first line in children. For SSRIs, you can use any SSRI, but fluoxetine is the first one which are using. You can also use escitalopram also. But paroxetine and sertraline, they have lesser evidence compared to fluoxetine and escitalopram. To treat OCD, the average dose of an SSRI that is required is far high than for that which is used for treatment of major depressive disorder. For example, in someone with major depressive disorder, only 20 to 40 milligrams of fluoxetine will be sufficient. But for to treat a patient with OCD, you need around 80 milligrams of fluoxetine. And if you start an SSRI for major depression, you wait for 2 weeks to get its effect. But and max peak effect will be at around 6 weeks in case of MBD. But for OCD, you have to start start early, escalate the dose early, faster, and you have to wait for about 3 months before switching to another drug. So you need to start high and you have to wait longer. And clomipramine was previously used and is the most serotonin specific tricyclic antidepressant. And but these days it is used usually as a second line drug. If someone fails to respond with SSRIs, you go for clomipramine. And because of the adverse effects of tricyclic antidepressants. And then clomipramine, intravenous clomipramine injections are also available, which are given as pulses in cases of resistant obsessive compulsive disorder. So someone has you start on SSRIs, you wait for 3 weeks, 3 months, and then there is no response. You either augment it or you add another drug, or you shift to another class of uh, drug. For example, you start with fluoxetine, there is no response. You either add clomipramine, or you can add the other options that are available are atypical antipsychotics, especially risperidone. And or fluoxetine olanzapine combination, which was called as Simbax, which is a trade name. Fluoxetine olanzapine combination is very uh, is one of the first line drugs for treatment resistant obsessive compulsive disorder. Fluoxetine can also be combined with risperidone, but again, because of enzyme inducing inhibiting potential of fluoxetine and fluoxamine, the uh, blood levels of risperidone increases, which leads to extrapyramidal side effects. So you have to use risperidone in low dose. So now coming to psychotherapy. So you have cognitive behavioral therapy, wherein you have cognitive component and you have behavioral component. So again, cognitive component, you ask the patient, you just maintain a thought diary. So ask him to list all his thoughts, and you'll try to uh, contradict whatever his thoughts or faults in his reasoning, and then try to change them. In behavioral component, you have exposure and response prevention. So this is the most widely practiced behavior therapy for obsessive compulsive disorder. So they have two components: exposure treatment and response prevention treatment. So exposure treatment is you ask the patient what all the situations that what are all his obsessions, what are all the situations that cause anxiety to that patient. All right, you now note down all the situations. For example, someone has an obsession of contamination. So so you ask him, so what all will cause anxiety? So we'll say unclean utensils cause anxiety, unclean house causes anxiety, or unclean bathroom causes anxiety. You'll ask the patient to list all those anxiety provoking situations from scale 1 to 10. Okay, so for example, a small amount of dirt uh, causes anxiety here. Ask something like a cow dung in his house will cause much more anxiety, or fecal matter in his house causes much more anxiety. So, accordingly, you will grade all the possible situations causing anxiety, and depending upon the number of situations that cause anxiety, you will rate them from least possible anxiety to the highest possible anxiety. And these situations are exposed to the patient. The patient is exposed to those situations, right? Wherein you have two types of exposure. Either you can ask the patient to imagine, or you can expose directly. So that is in vitro or in vivo. So in vitro, you ask the patient, you will try to ask the patient to relax, and based on you ask first, you relax the patient by systematic relaxation, and then you ask the patient to imagine the least possible cause of anxiety. For example, he says, I haven't washed me washing, not washing the hands for half an hour will cause anxiety. Okay, then you'll ask him to imagine you are not washing your hands. They are still dirty, but you are not washing them. So he will try to imagine this particular situation for some time. So he'll have anxiety, but after some time, anxiety fades out. So then, once the anxiety fades out, then he will shift to the next level. Right, the next level might be dirty hands. So then you will ask the patient to imagine dirt on his hands, and you will ask him to imagine like that for so long as much as anxiety comes down. So gradually we'll expose him, ask him to imagine, and once the anxiety comes down, you will shift to the next level, and finally the last level probably is fecal matter in his hands. You'll ask him to imagine. So probably, and then finally, uh, once the anxiety comes down for that particular situation, therapy will be over. Or you can expose the patient directly in an in vivo situation. Okay, you'll place some dirt on in his hands, wait till anxiety comes down, and then the next level. So this is exposure treatment. So the basis behind this is anxiety will not last longer, because a person will not be able to tolerate the anxiety for longer times. He will try to reduce anxiety by doing a compulsion. So we are exposing the patient in the first part of treatment till the anxiety comes down, and that during that period we are trying the patient to stop himself from compulsion or compulsive act. This is exposure. Next, you have response prevention. So, we'll try to help the patient to resist the compulsion or to perform the rituals, and finally, so that they finally stop engaging in these behaviors. Probably this is what which was done in the second part of Mahanabhavda movie. And when you see Tenali, if someone would have watched Tenali movie, he'll have lots of phobias and lots of fears of various situations, and he thinks that the psychiatrist is actually trying to cure him by a therapy by trying to expose this particular hero to various situations. That is what is exposure, and from that situation, the patient has not escaped. So, and then the response has been prevented. Same is with obsessive compulsive disorder also. And this there is another thing called systematic desensitization, which is used in anxiety disorders. The same thing, patient will be which is used for panic and phobic disorders, that will be covered later on. Wherein the anxiety provoking stimulus is exposed, the patient is exposed to an anxiety provoking stimulus, and he'll be exposed to such a time that the anxiety comes down, and then um, we'll go to the next level in the constructed hierarchy of the list of anxiety provoking situations. Then there is another treatment called deep brain stimulation. So for for psychotherapy, you have cognitive behavior therapy only, and in behavior therapy, you have exposure and response prevention, which is the gold standard for treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder. And then you have other treatments like deep brain stimulation, wherein corticothalamic hyperactive circuit is disrupted, and the electrode is for the deep brain stimulation is placed in anterior limb of internal capsule, and by this we try to modulate orbitofrontal cortex, anterior cingulate cortex, striatum, thalamus, and globus pallidus. Then, in cases of treatment refractory, so someone who has not responded to two or three or four therapies, combinations of therapies, and so we label him as treatment refractory, you go for psychosurgery, wherein four clinical procedures are done. This is only just for your for, knowledge. Yes, you may or you may not write in your examination. Four clinical procedures like cingulotomy, subchordatic tracheotomy, limbic leucotomy, and capsulotomy. These are the procedures which are done with the interrupt signals from orbitofrontal cortex to the basal ganglia. So this is there are the various options available, and now this is the overview of the various treatment responses. Like you start an SSRI, the patient has improved, patient has not improved, you will go to a second SSRI. The patient has not improved to the second SSRI, also you shift to clomipramine, and then the response is good, you continue the same dose. And if there is partial, if there is no response, you shift to another drug. If there is partial response, you augment the response with another drug, which might be an SSRI or clomipramine or an antipsychotic. Then, if there is still no response, you add behavioral therapy. And then, if still there are no responses, finally you go for TCMS or neurosurgeries. Yeah, prognosis, it has a chronic waxing and waning course. So the rule of thirds holds in psychiatry, very good. So 30% will have significant improvement, around 30-40% will have moderate, and remaining 30% they'll get worse. And obsessive compulsive disorder at a later date, they will end up in psychosis also. The poor prognostic factors are yielding compulsions. Sometimes the patients will resist to the compulsions and they'll not act on those obsessions and will try to resist. There are certain patients who yield to the compulsions and they will do whatever, they'll yield to the obsessions and they'll be continuously engaging in compulsions. Yeah, early onset, bizarre compulsions, the need for hospitalization, comorbid depression, and personality disorders, and presence of delusional beliefs. Good prognostic factors are social and occupational adjustment, good social and occupational adjustment, presence of precipitating events, and episodic nature of the illness. So this completes your obsessive compulsive disorder. So again, when you write an examination, you have to start with epidemiology, then etiology. In etiology, you write biological factors, which include neuroanatomy, neurochemistry, genetics. Then, if at all any immunological factors involved, then you have psychological factors and then social factors. Then after that, you write about clinical features, then the diagnostic criteria, then management. In management, we discuss about pharmacotherapy, psychotherapy, and other treatments that are available. Then course and prognosis. Then you have other disorders which come under obsessive compulsive and related disorders, which include hypochondriasis. Hypochondriasis in DSM-4, which was included in somatization and somatoform disorders, but now it has been moved from somatoform disorders to obsessive compulsive and related disorders. At hypochondriasis, someone will be having a belief that his or her certain body parts are not proper, so they'll try to get corrected it. Sorry, that is body. I'm sorry, that is body dysmorphic disorder. Hypochondriasis, they'll have a belief that they have a named illness. For example, someone believes that he is suffering from HIV/AIDS, so he'll go and get checked for himself. So he get a negative result, but still he'll have that belief. So he'll continuously changing doctors and labs and thinking that he has HIV, and he will not believe the report even if that comes negative. That is hypochondriasis. Hypochondriasis, he will have a named uh, disease, or he says that I'm suffering from brain tumor, or they'll have a named disease. There are some in somatization, he'll have symptoms, but not he'll not name a disease. In hypochondriasis, he'll say, I have this particular disease. Then body dysmorphic disorder. So the person will feel that his or her certain body parts are, they are not appropriate, so we'll try to correct them. So for example, if you take Sri Devi, she is so obsessed with her nose that she has some maybe so many plastic surgeries performed on her just for her nose job. That is body dysmorphic disorder. Then hoarding disorder is in uh, the person, they have they cannot throw any article out of their house, so they'll feel that okay, these are valuable enough, or I may have these may be of use at a later date, so nothing will be thrown away or discarded from his house. So after, if you go visit to that particular person's house after 30 or 40 years, that his house will be completely full of unwanted stuff. If um, then olfactory reference disorder. So in this, the person feels that he is emitting a bad smell. So under his body, he is emitting a bad body odor. So he will continuously engage himself in cleaning his body repetitively. And even this is again in contrary to what is actually true or normal. So these are obsessive compulsive and related disorders. So this completes obsessive compulsive disorder and related disorders. And OCD might be a 4-mark question, and from these hypochondriasis, the other disorders, you may have MCQs in your entrance examinations. So this is it. Any doubts? Okay then. Thank you.